Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another video. So today's video is going to be a cook with me. I'm going to be making keema and peas and also dal and chicken, and I'm also going to be making chapatis. So let's go. So I'm going to show you exactly what I do. All the recipes that I use today will be in the description of this video, so if you want to make any of it, then check out the description and everything will be there for you. So let's get started. So I'm going to start by making the chapati dough, which is literally just flour, water, a little bit of oil and a little bit of salt. So let's go. So for my chapati flour, I use this one. I'm going to put a picture of it on the screen because I cannot get it out of this box because it's full. So I'm going to be using about 2 mugs of this. I'm going to just roughly measure it. I'm not doing anything specific today. And then I like to fill up this mug halfway with some flour, and that's going to help me with rolling if I need to add any more. And then I'm just going to put this one away. To this I'm going to add a little bit of vegetable oil, literally like a tablespoon or so, and then probably less than a tablespoon. And then I'm going to add a little bit of salt. Now I'm going to add the water and mix it until it turns into a breadcrumby like consistency, and then I will mix it with my hands and make it into a dough. So now that it looks like this, I'm going to mix it with my hands and just squish it all together, but I have to be very careful because it is super duper hot. So I'm going to do it very slowly and very carefully. Now that is a dough, I'm going to cover it with a clean tea towel and just leave that to sit until I'm ready to make them. And it's just easier to roll when it's cooler, so that's why I like to do the chapatis first, and then I'm ready to make the curry. First thing I'm going to do here is do the onions. I'm going to use 3 onions for 2 curries because I just feel like it, okay? I like a lot of onions in my curries. You can use 1 onion or 2 small ones. So I'm going to use 1.5 for each. I'm going to peel them and then use my, you guessed it, my Ninja blender to blend them up and then put them on to cook. Those onions are so strong. Normally I don't cry when I cut onions because I wear contact lenses, but they're so strong that it's literally not even helping. I'm crying. But anyway, I've done half of the onion. I'm going to put the pans on to heat up, and then I'm going to do the rest and put the onions in. I just remembered that I don't need the other onions yet. I need to start boiling the dal, which is going to take a little while, but it's fine. I'm going to just do it on here right now. I'm going to put some boiling water into this pan here. I'm going to add some more to that because I don't think that's enough yet. So I have 1 cup of dal here. I will put a picture on the screen of the packet of the one that I used because this is the last of it. And I've been soaking this for a couple of hours and it has expanded a bit, so that's why it looks like there's a lot more than that. I'm going to add a bit of salt to this pan just so that it's got a bit of flavour. Don't forget to keep stirring your onions, okay guys? And then I'm going to just add this, even though it's not boiling yet, I'm going to add it to this water. and that is that on to boil. So that's one thing done. Now I'm going to prepare the onions for the dal, but they're just going to sit in here while I do the rest of the stuff. So let's do that now. So they're just going to sit there while I do the rest of it. So the next step is to prepare everything else, the tomatoes and the spices. For the spices for the keema, I'm going to be using 1/4 teaspoon of haldi, 1 teaspoon of garlic and ginger paste, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of coriander powder, 1 teaspoon of cumin powder, and that is all of the spices in there ready to add to the keema. The spices for the keema are now prepared. I'm now going to sort out the tomatoes. I'm going to chop them up and blitz them in my other little pot. So the onions are over here, and I'm going to be using this one. This is like an extra pot that came with it, which is very handy, as you can see. I'm going to do 4 of these. I'm going to use half of them for the dal and half of them for the keema. So I'm going to do that now. So the onions are cooking away nicely. I'm actually going to start doing the onions for the dal. I've got a pan over here which has got some oil in it, so I'm going to stick the gas on that, and then I'm going to add all of these onions to it. That was close. I've turned those onions all the way down so that they cook slowly, and then I have turned these ones up so they cook a little bit faster. This I have turned almost all the way down just so that it doesn't boil over, but it's still boiling away nicely. So I'm just stirring these onions until they're cooked. I don't want them to stick, I don't want them to burn, so stir, stir, stir. So these onions are nicely browned, so I'm going to add the keema now. This seems to be sticking, I have no idea why, so I'm going to add a little bit of water just so that it kind of scrapes off the bottom. Keep stirring this and breaking it up so that we have small pieces of keema. Okay, so now that the keema is nicely browned, I'm going to add half of the tomatoes and also some passata. I'm only adding passata because I have some to use up. I don't normally add passata. I would just add tomato puree, but I'm not going to add tomato puree, just the passata. I completely forgot to add chilies, so I'm going to just blend them up now. And I'm just going to add half of that. I'm going to use half of it into the dal as well. I'm going to add a bit more water to this and just let it cook really slowly once it comes to a boil. Now I'm going to add some peas to this, all of them, and just stir that until they're all dispersed. I just added another one of these full of water. I'm just going to stir that and let it boil, and then I'm going to leave it for another 5 minutes. So while the keema is finishing cooking and while the dal is still boiling, I'm going to prepare the spices for the dal. So what I'm going to use is the rest of these green chillies, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of cumin, and 1 teaspoon of coriander, about half a teaspoon of haldi, and 1 teaspoon of curry powder. So now that that is prepared, I am going to check on the dal. I'm going to see if it's cooked, so I'm literally going to try and grab some with this knife. It looks cooked to me. Ow! It's hot. So I have one piece here, and it squashes really easily, so that's how I know it's done. So I'm going to get a sieve and drain it out in the sink. So the keema is looking cooked, the peas are done, so I'm going to turn the heat off this and put it to the side, ready to eat later. The next thing I'm going to do is the chicken. I have a pan on to heat here, and I have the chicken breast which I still need to cut, so I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to add the chicken to the pan with some butter, salt and pepper, and then that's all done. I have some butter here, which I'm going to melt on this pan and then add my chicken straight to this pan. Adding some salt and pepper. Okay, the chicken is now cooked. It's got a lovely little bit of a brown coating on it. I'm going to put some of it into a little bowl for the kids for their dinner because they don't like any of the things that I'm cooking today, so they're going to have some plain chicken with some chapatis and some veg and things like that. I will show you what they're going to have as well. But the onions are cooking away. They've started to brown nicely. I've put the onions on a heat over here, the smallest heat. I'm going to add the spices to this. And just let the spices cook out for about 2 to 3 minutes. Now that the spices have finished cooking, I'm going to add the dal to this. And also some of the chicken. And then I'm going to give this a quick stir. And now to this I'm going to add my tomatoes. Yeah. She gone to school? No, she's not. She's at home now, darling. And then I'm going to add some passata. So I just tasted it and it does need salt, so I'm going to add a bit more salt. And that is all done. So I'm going to leave this to cook for a couple more minutes. Might add a little bit more water, but it's all done basically. So that is all the cooking done. All I'm going to do is add some coriander just before we eat, but I'm going to tidy up this big mess of a kitchen, and then next time you see me I'll be making the chapatis. So see you then.
Later that same evening.
So I'm actually going to start making the chapatis now. I'm going to just roll my dough into balls. So after I've rolled it, I like to flatten it out so it's easier when it comes to rolling it. My dough is a little bit soft, so I'm adding a little bit of flour as I roll it, otherwise it's just sticking to my hands. It takes so long to kind of get used to making chapatis. Like, even I'm not used to it yet. I've been making them for like 10 years. So my chapatis are basically ready to roll, so I'm going to wipe the worktop. So I just wiped it, but I like to kind of wipe it down again with my washing up sponge and then wipe it down with kitchen roll so I know that it's completely clean. So my worktop's completely clean. I'm going to let it air dry for about 5 minutes and then I'm going to come back and make the chapatis. So I'm not actually going to show you exactly how I make my chapatis right now because I've got a whole video on that. I might do another one soon, but it's basically all in that video. So I will leave that linked below if you want to see how I make them. But this is the food. It's so yummy. Like, I love having this kind of food, especially the keema and the dal together. It's just the best thing ever. And my dad is the biggest fan of it. But anyway, that is going to be the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Assalamu alaikum. Bye.